Welcome to the Books of Titans podcast hosted by Erik Rostad. Join him on his 15-year journey through the immortal books. He'll share what he's learning, explore profound ideas across time and cultures, and share the one thing he always hopes to remember from each immortal book.
Well, this morning I started reading the introduction of the complete works of Plato, the version edited by John M. Cooper. It contains 36 of Plato's works, and it is translated by a number of different people. But this volume is 1,765 pages. I am still in the introduction, but my plan here is to make my way through this book by the end of the year. And this was not always the plan. I at first had just kind of thought, well, I will read a few of the main works by Plato, obviously the Republic and maybe 4 or 5 others, and just stop at that. But when I went on Twitter X not too long ago, and I just asked the question, what translation should I use for Plato when I'm reading the works of Plato? And I expected to get answers of like different translators for different works, like, use this translator for the Republic, use this for this. But what I ended up seeing over and over were people recommending this volume of the complete works of Plato. And so I decided to buy it. It is heavy, it's big, but then when I started hearing people talk about this, I started thinking, what if I just read all of the works by Plato? I mean, he has had such a tremendous impact on literature after him in thought and philosophy that what if I just tried to make my way through this whole book? And I think seeing it all in one volume really helped spur that idea. Because if I had been buying a bunch of different books of Plato to try to piece together like his main works and all that, I'm just not sure it would have made sense for me to buy all these volumes and then read through to read the complete works. But when they're presented all together like this, and I love just kind of the idea of starting at the beginning of a book and just going to the end. And so this is about the size of a Bible in terms of number of pages and all that. It's actually, this volume is printed on the same type of paper where it's that very thin paper. And I start off each year reading straight through the Bible. It takes me 2 months to do that. So January and February. And so to me, I'm looking at this complete works of Plato and I'm thinking, I can do this. And I think I might be able to get it done by the end of the year. And I'm not saying that in the sense of I want to just blow through this so I can get it done and check it off the list. I do want to take it slowly. I want to take my time. If there's a particular work that I want to dig deeper into, I want to take the time to do that. I will do that for sure with the Republic. I'll read the version in Plato's Complete Works. And then I'll also read the Alan Bloom translation because I've heard very good things about that. So that's where I'm at. Plato is the 18th author on that list of immortal authors, the immortal books that I'm going through. So I've broken it up into 200 different authors, and I'm reading them in chronological order. So some works we don't know who the author is. So instead of listing the author, I would list something like the Epic of Gilgamesh or something like that. So now with Plato, Plato is the 18th author on that list, and I'm just going to try to read all of his works. I wanted to record this episode really for the purpose of creating a timestamp of sorts, of kind of the before Plato, and then I'll probably do an episode after Plato. And my plan is to do an episode for most, if not all, of his major works as I'm going through them. That helps me to remember the works. Just the act of preparing a podcast episode, I would hope that you guys learn something from those episodes as well, and maybe it causes you to want to read the work or get into Plato as well. But I'm curious of the impact that Plato will have. Will there be kind of a before Plato Erik and then an after Plato Erik? Or, what's going to happen to me over these next few months as I'm going through the complete works of Plato? And so I want to have sort of a timestamp of just wondering what it will be like, stating my plan right now, and then starting to go about it. So I'm largely going in blind here. I with Plato. I have read the Republic. I read that in the very first year of this reading project, so 2017, and I did not get much out of it at all. Just really in the sense of not remembering much of anything from that work. I think a lot of it had a couple things. One, I read part of the Republic in college as well. I took a philosophy course, and I tell myself that I am not good at philosophy. Now, whether I am or not, the mere fact that I've told myself that for so many years probably doesn't help. But I've got in my mind that philosophy is just not for me, or it's something that is hard for me. And it really is. I mean, like if people are talking about philosophy and ideas, and I just remember thinking back to that course in college where it's like my brain would freeze. They're talking, my brain would freeze. I just wasn't capturing what they were saying, and my brain would freeze. They would keep going, and then I would just get totally lost. And that still happens today. Like if I'm talking to somebody that is just so much smarter than me, and they're going on about things, I get lost, and then I can't catch up. And so philosophy in that sense scares me, just that I have trouble with it. And so I'm going into Plato here, having read the Republic, not remembering much of it, and kind of going in blind. But I'm hoping that this helps fix that issue in my brain that just kind of stops if the discussion about philosophy is going over my head. So we'll see. That's one thing I'm curious to see if that happens, just to become better acquainted with the foundation of a lot of philosophic thought, and in seeing that here in Plato. The other difference from 2017 is now I'm approaching Plato having read most of the main Greek works that preceded Plato. So I've read Homer twice. I've read all of the Greek tragedies. I wasn't planning on that, but I just loved them so much. I've read some of the Greek history. I read Sappho. I've just read like other Greek works that I understand Plato refers to. So I think just that aspect will make a huge difference from when I first read Plato in college, obviously, but then in 2017 as well. There'll be more that I'll understand more of the references. Perhaps I'll have a better idea of where I first saw these thoughts, and now Plato kind of taking them to the next logical step. So I'm excited about that aspect of it, but also kind of wanted to create that timestamp of this is where I'm at going into Plato. For the reading order, this was something else I had a big question on, and I asked this question on Twitter X, which if you have questions about the classics or literature, I found Twitter X to be a great place to ask those questions. People are very eager to share what they've learned and what they've come across in the books that they're reading and that sort of thing. And so one of the questions I asked is what order should I read Plato's works? And I think I even stated something like, my plan is to read them chronologically. And the reason I thought it would be good to read them chronologically, in the sense of reading his first works first and then going to the works, right before he died. My reason for doing that was just to see the evolution of his thought throughout his life. And that's the approach I've taken with this project as a whole. With the Immortal Books is wanting to read them in chronological order to see how these ideas have expanded over time, how one author takes it from another author, and they, just kind of keeps working its way through history. So that was my thinking with reading these in chronological order. But even in the 10 pages of the introduction that I read this morning, a lot of that has to do with the order that the editor placed these in this book. And also, just he states that it's very hard to know the order in which these were written. And so scholars debate that. So you might read it in one order, and then another scholar thinks it's a completely different order that you would want to read them in. So there is probably some general understanding of kind of the main works, perhaps, but just in general, we don't really know what the order is. And so what the editor of this version did, so John Cooper, what he did in this version was to place them in the order that Thrasyllus put them together in the 1st century AD. So Thrasyllus put together this collection of the works of Plato, and this is the order that he had them in. And so that's the order that I'm going to read them in. That's the order that John Cooper has them in this work. And after reading them, my plan is to cover them on the podcast. So I don't know if I'll cover all 36 or just kind of the major ones, but I do want to then cover them on the podcast. So if you're interested in kind of following along on this journey, the order that I will be reading them is the John Cooper order, and then I'll kind of be covering them as I encounter them on this podcast here. So I hope you join that journey with me, whether it's just through listening or reading and listening. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I do plan to stop and smell the roses at times. As I said earlier, my goal is not to blow through these and cross them off. My goal is to understand them. My goal is to understand the arguments that Plato is making and to learn from them, to not just blow past these. And so if I come across one that I think, okay, this first reading, I had a lot of trouble, I'm going to try another translation, perhaps another version, and see if that helps me to understand it better. I've been doing that for other works in this Immortal Books project, and every time I do that, it adds so much to the experience. So we'll be doing that for sure for the Republic, but perhaps some of the other works as well, especially if it's one of his more well-known works, and especially if after reading it, I just don't understand or still have a number of questions. So so I'm sure I'll make some diversions along the way. I'll highlight those if I pick up another translation or version or that sort of thing. It's been funny the last couple of weeks. I'm preparing for an event we have coming up at the bookstore, and so I'm reading the works of that particular author, and it's been so good. I've loved it. I just kind of like fills my love of reading, because I'm taking these rabbit trails of books that inspired this book or books that are referenced in the book, and so it's so fun. I'm having a blast, but I really found myself starting to miss the Immortal Books and just this strong desire to get back, and especially knowing that I was going to be starting Plato. So I am thrilled at this moment to have started this. It does not scare me at all in the sense of it being this huge book. I love that aspect of it. I'm holding it right now. It's heavy. I can't wait to carry this around with me and read it when I've got a few minutes here and there. Read it in the mornings with my coffee, and I'm really excited about getting into Plato here. So hope you'll follow along on this journey, and I can't wait to do this episode on the other side of it, where I kind of talk about the 36 works of Plato and perhaps how I've seen it change things in my mind, maybe things in my life, maybe my understanding of things that I've read before or after, all of that. It's going to be a blast. So here we go. Thank you for joining me on this. That will do it for this episode. Thank you for listening. I'd love to hear from you if you are a Plato scholar, if you're a Plato, just a lover of Plato, if there's a particular work of Plato that you have enjoyed, or version or translation, please let me know those things. I would love to take them into consideration. You can follow Books of Titans on Instagram or Twitter. It's just at Books of Titans. I also have a couple different websites. One is a Substack that's at booksoftitans.com. That's where I post my podcast episodes and articles. So the articles come out Tuesday mornings, the podcasts on Friday mornings. And then books.booksoftitans.com is where I highlight all of my reading lists. So I highlight every reading list from 2017 through today. I have my Immortal Books reading list there if you're interested in seeing what I plan to read over the next 15 years. And then just a number of other helpful tools on that website. So take a look there. I'll be back next week. Hopefully I'll be covering my first work of Plato here, and I can't wait. Until then, keep reading, keep learning, and keep listening. I'm out.